as we think about this conversation that we've been talking about, and we're continuing in this place, here's Jesus, and he's at this place in which that he's talking to them. I always imagine, talking and walking. He may be at the Lord's Supper or maybe towards the garden. We don't know where that is exactly at, but he's in this continued conversation with the Lord's Supper to the time he's arrested and been crucified. Before this, he's talking to disciples and saying, you're going to be on earth, and I need you to know what to do, how to live here. And so right in the middle of this amazing conversation, they're listening. He just looks up at the sky, and he just starts praying. It's like, and we get to listen to his prayer. And what's really cool about his prayer is about us on this earth. So we can really take this in. Look in John 17. We're going to go 13 through 19. Just imagine being disciples listening to this. He says, now I'm coming to you. He's talking to his Father in heaven. Now I'm coming to you. I told them many things while I was with them in the world, so they would be filled with my joy. I have given them your word, and the world hates them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but keep them safe from the evil one. They do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. Just as you sent me into the world, I am sending them into the world. I give myself as a holy sacrifice for them, so they can be made holy by your truth. Now, if you imagine, take that in, the word that I want to talk about that we see in this is this place of the word sent. That is a word that means a lot in this passage. As you think about sent, I think of the familiar John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he sent Jesus. Growing up, I had a grandmother that lived right next door to me. And this it was kind of like her yard was our yard, her house is our yard. Her house was our house. We went around all the time. We were always dropping in and out. But once in a while, I actually was sent by my parents. They would say, David, go tell Grandma we have to leave at 10 o'clock for the doctor's appointment. Okay, don't forget. When is it? 10 o'clock, right. David, give this money. Don't lose this money. Don't go play. Take this money. Give it to Grandma. We owe her this $20. David, take this dish back. Say thank you. David, go check and see if Grandma's okay. Now, when that happened, it changed the way I went to my grandma's house. It changed the way I operated. I understood. I was really aware this is important. I understood that this is representing someone very important. And I understood that I had this boldness, right? I had this place in which that, me going to check on Grandma was very different than me dropping in and say, can I have another cookie at 10 years old, right? It's a very different deal, right? Because now I'm sent. And it's not just my message, it's an important message. It's from my parents. And there's this kind of boldness that would have, this little 10-year-old would say, she'd say, no, David, I'm not going to come over till 11. No, Grandma, it's at 10 o'clock. You need to be there. No, you take this $20. It's yours. I had this boldness. Why? Because I knew that? No, because I was given an assignment. I was sent. And as I think about that, we look at this place of Jesus, and Jesus connected and belonged to his Father. And he trusted his Father. He loved his Father. And Jesus then was sent into this world with this message of who God was. And he showed it in all his life, his actions, and what he spoke and what he did. And so now we see this prayer, him saying this place of saying, and in this prayer we see this amazing thing because it's showing really clearly this is why Jesus came. And he's also saying, and then he talks about that he gave the message to us, anybody, and this prayer is for us, anybody who had believed and trusted and put into practice the words that he gave them, and it transformed them, and all of a sudden they belonged to God, not the world anymore, which we'll explain a little bit later. And in the process, they also were sent back into the world just as Jesus was sent into the world. Now, that's pretty radical, that you and I have been sent into the world to reveal Jesus just like Jesus did. Now, I was raised in church, and I'm very grateful that I was raised in church. I learned a lot in church. I learned that I could be forgiven of my sins, which is a pretty good deal. I learned that you could actually know that you were not going to perish, that you could have eternal life. That was a pretty good deal. I kind of learned that moral benefits your life, morality benefits your life, that being a moral person, doing the right thing, it actually, and also it does this other thing. I was taught that my testimony was the morality of my life. In other words, if you want God to look good, you better look good. If you want God to look bad, don't be bad because he'll look bad. So that was kind of this testimony. And so in that stuff, I also believed that there was this world that's speaking of in that term, which was not a positive thing. It was an evil spot. There's this thing of the world that was evil. And what I was taught, without probably trying to be taught this, is stay clear of it and stay away from it because it will mess you up. And so that's my perception, accept Jesus, fight to stay moral, don't dishonor God, don't make God look bad, and hang in there, heaven is coming. That was my theology. I couldn't articulate that at 10 years old, but that was my theology. And so, now the thing about our church is we actually had a strong belief that people needed to experience and have Jesus revealed to them and have the message said. And so, but the way we approached it was different in our church. The way we did that is we had a way in which that we had people come into a meeting during the week, and then we adjust that meeting for all those people who didn't know Jesus, and then you would get all your friends to come to that meeting. They called those revivals back then, right? And so in that spot, my job was to pack the pews. Now that term, you think you'd never use that announcement. No, that's what they used in the announcements. You actually needed to pack the pews. And if you packed the pews, you got prizes. You got the case of Lifesavers if you packed a whole pew. It was a lot of Lifesavers. Every flavor there was, you got it. Man, I want to pack some pews for Jesus, right? And so we packed the pews. And then what you want is you want a guy to come in who can really say it well. And usually, hopefully, he's come off drugs, or hopefully he's a professional athlete, or something, right? And he just, he talks, and he says, this is who Jesus is, and he's really good at it. And ironically, God just loves his message, and it was effective in many ways. But the message became clear to me through that model is this: leave the delivery of the message and the revelation of Jesus to the professionals, right? That's it. And so in the middle of that, here's how you compare it. Remember my example of my grandmother? It'd be like this. David, go bring your grandmother over here. I think she's sick. We need to look at her. Bring her to the house. Can I just check? No. David, bring her over here. I need to give her some money. David, I need to get this dish. Bring her over here. I'll give her the dish, and she can go back. Right? I wasn't entrusted. And so, even though I couldn't articulate that, that was the message that I had. And but that changed. My Paragon dime got shaken up at this weird time where it was between services, because we had lots of services. And it was before the evening service. And we had a gap there, which was thrilling on Sunday because you had no gaps. And so me and my other friends were all playing in the grassy area. The parking lot was pretty empty. People had not come to the other service. And to our surprise, a Jeep pulls up, which no one had a Jeep, and the top was off of it. It was really cool. And what was really radical, the guy had tremendously long hair in the late 60s. And he looked crazy. And we thought, this is cool. And he pulls in, and if you can imagine, put a hippie in Kansas and how that stands out. We had a sighting of a hippie, and he pulled in his Jeep, and he went around to the front of the Jeep, and he sat on the hood, and he just was enjoying us. He wasn't creeping us. He was enjoying us. And we come up to him, he starts talking to us, and he's just like glowing with joy. And he says, hey, guys, I know it's weird to stop here. He goes, but I drove by, and I saw you're at a church, and you're playing together, and I just want to tell you, isn't it so cool that you know Jesus? I just met him. And he's so cool. I wish I had what you guys had. He starts talking about Jesus, starts talking about his life. And I just want to say, it is so great to see you guys. And he starts telling us this whole story. I remember just watching him, And I thought to myself, he left and like, who was that man? It was that kind of feeling, like Jesus pulled into our parking lot. That's what it felt like. I can remember when he was talking. I remember the joy I felt from him. I remember this feeling of God's love from him. I remember knowing he wasn't lying to me. I just knew it was true what he was saying. And I remember thinking, Jesus is cool, Now, I say that because, we are called to be like Jesus. And Jesus says, this world's not my home. And then Jesus says in this prayer, this is not your home either. But I'm here. The reason I'm here is because I've been sent to this world. And he says, and they are too. And you think about that, Just take that in. When you think about that, how does that make you feel? So let's go through this text real quick again, just with this perspective of being sent. And now I'm coming to you. I told you many things while I was with them in this world, so they may be filled with joy. When we receive this message of Jesus and we get it, it's like we're in a world that's hard, but joy comes because we have now been pulled from this dark place into a place that we can see that we're out of this temporal world. This is not our home. And it just brings tremendous joy as we connect. In Corinthians it says, we're a new creation. We never look at each other from a worldly point of view anymore, but we're a brand new creation. The old is gone, the new is here. In Peter, he says, we're a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into this wonderful light. We're the citizen. We've changed our citizenship. And now when it's talking about the world can be translated in many ways, and it's really this cosmos, it's really the same, but it has to be translated in many different ways. It's not talking just about earth and trees. It's talking about this place, in this place in which that theologians call the moral world, the place of, it's a place that has been corrupted. A place that, as it says, Jesus says that there's a prince of this world, the one that has things that are the bad things that are causing the bad things you're seeing on the news and the responses and the place that we're in, this place of this system in which the world is. It talks about in Corinthians, the God of this age has blinded the minds because the world's hostility to God, and it is corrupt. So that's what it's speaking about, is this temporal thing that's passing away, that God so loved and decided to, it's this place of these people who are in this world. It's like they're these sheep in this system without a shepherd. Those are the people in this world that God so loved. And then he came in as light. And as he showed light, what we see is, in this place of that, is that not only has the joy has been there, we also see that I have given them your word, and the world hates them because they do not belong to this world. And so there's this other weird thing. We have joy, but we're also distinctly from. And so the world, maybe some of the people in the world, but the world itself is against us and hates us. And so, just like he hated them. Then we talked about this place. He goes in and he just basically explains to them. He says, you understand this now more. He says, I'm not asking you to take them out of the world. They need to be there. I'm just asking you, it's an evil place. I want you to make sure that you keep them safe. And then what I want you to do is make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. Again, we see this thing of God's truth. It's when we take God's words and we put it into practice, where we receive it and put our weight on it, it transforms us into this new identity in which we belong to heaven and we're removed from the world. But then simultaneously, it puts us back in to the world, and we're sent to the world at that same moment. That's what God is praying for. That's what is true for us. And then he gets to this final spot in which that he says, you sent me into the world. So you sent me in the world. I'm sending them in the world, and I give myself as a holy sacrifice for them so they can be made holy in your truth. In other words, this is possible because of what I'm going to do. This is what allows this to take place, that you can be free from the powers of the evilness of this world, and that you actually can belong to God, and that you actually can be in the world and be protected and actually be sent into the world through what Jesus did. Now, just as you sent me into the world, I am sending you into the world. Now, here's a truth. Truth number one. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. He sent his only begotten Son. God so loved the world that he sent you. Those are true. If you trust your life to Jesus in that moment, you are removed from the place of the power of this world. You're under the authority of the kingdom. You belong to God. Heaven is your home. You become a stranger. And you're entrusted with this message, and you get to deliver this message. You get to take it to other people, and they experience that message and who God is through that process. Now, just take that in. How do you feel about that, right? How does that make you feel? Probably lots of emotions in that. That's a pretty strong statement that you've been sent in the world to bring and reveal God. And I would say this is, I would say that this truth is that, you know, when we do this, when we come into this place, we bring God's healing, his power, his revelation, his truth, his forgiveness. It comes through us, his body. And we're sent into the world for that to take place. Now, I found that, you know, we're in the Vineyard. We've talked a lot about that we are the ministers. You know, people, you ask our church, who's the minister of the church? They will say, I am, or we are. And we believe that, and we push that all the time. And I think theologically, this isn't really hard for many of us who have been around saying, yes, that's true, that's true, that's true. Yes, that's true. Some of it may be news to us, but many of that's true. But what I've found is it is still difficult to do. That it's still difficult to live in an understanding that I've actually been sent. I find myself often in places of just kind of forgetting I'm this earthen vessel carrying around a treasure I can give away. I sometimes forget that I am actually the light of the world. And I think Jesus knows that it's easy to not believe this, and that's why he says, by the way, do not put a basket over your light. Why does he say that? Because we have a tendency of doing that. He says, no, put that up on a lampstand, right? Put it way up where everybody can see it, and it can bring light to the whole room. Do this, so let your light be shine so people can see that and turn to God. It's no probably accident that Paul talks about the feeling of, I go ahead and speak and say the message of Jesus, even though I feel like a fool sometimes. I'm no longer ashamed of the gospel. I mean, why is he saying that? Because he has that spot in which that it becomes difficult to really understand that I'm sent, and this is really who I'm made to be. And I think sometimes when we think about what it means to be sent, we think in kind of strange, distorted terms or in ways that somehow in the ending we don't think we can do much, right? And even if we know it theologically, we can do this. In this place in which that we have this kind of distorted group, I couldn't preach to crowds. I couldn't say things perfectly. I couldn't ever be up talking to people. You start just, many of you are just kind of going through those things already, right, in your mind. And to understand that's probably okay, just don't worry about that. I mean, the idea of being sent, it's not like you're going to just move to another location or something. That's part of it. Maybe he had to turn the Jeep into the parking lot. That was being sent. How did he go to where he's being sent? He thought, I'm pulling in. I'm going to tell him what I think. That's crazy, but I'll do it. He pulls in. He tells them what he thinks. That's being sent. He went to where he was sent, right? Think in that terms when you think about being sent. Not some big picture way of how you're sent in every part of your life throughout your day. How about this moment when you're around somebody and you're talking to them, and all of a sudden you feel compassion for what's going on in their life, and you feel that stirring, and you can feel what God feels about them, and you just say it. That's being sent. That's going where you're sent. Or you start a conversation, you ask more questions. This moment where there's this small but clear, this moment of opportunity, that you can feel it, and you just decide, I'm going to tell them how Jesus affected me in this area. I want to do it. And you go where you're sent. How about this spot of where you have this place where someone's at work or a co-worker, friend, neighbor, starts talking to you, and you know as they're talking to you, they're inside, they're kind of not doing well, and you feel that you can tell there's something below the surface that they're kind of hinting at, but they don't know what to do with it. The world won't go there, but the follower of Jesus needs to go there, and they need to go down and say, what's going on? And bring the love of God into that situation, to ask more questions. Or when you're at that spot where you're talking about this issue with your friends, and all of a sudden you realize, man, this is complex. I don't think I have much to say about this. I've just hurt for them. And you say these 7 amazing words. Can I pray for you, what? Right now. And by those words, you go. And then God does and reveals himself. Or maybe there's this place that you just have, some of you online, some of you here, have never gone public with your faith. Some people don't even know you go to church, let alone talk about Jesus like we do. And you feel disqualified, and you think, well, my life has to get together. No. You just go there. You say, hey, by the way, I've been going the last 5 years. I've loved Jesus, but I've never told you. I should probably tell you that. That's how you get sent. You get honest about who you truly are, and share what you believe, and share about yourself, and share about Jesus. Let them in. Jeff Calvert, who's helping lead us in worship this morning, way back, his son was being baptized. And Jeff had not had a Christian background until after he was married. He came to our church, and I think he came to Jesus, got baptized, and we prayed over his kid all at the same time, I think. So it was like this big boom, jump. And so now Kyle's grown up and a little bit, and so he's getting baptized. And so we're at this baptism. At the time, we were doing it in Castlewood State Park. There's this creek that goes into the Merrimack, and there's this little spot we used. It's kind of cool. And we'd meet over there, and so everybody's piling into this Castlewood State Park. And I'm kind of arranging everything. Everybody's laughing, talking, getting their lawn chairs set up, And Kyle was going to get baptized. And so I looked around, and I noticed right where we're going to get baptized, there was a guy laying there. And he had a cooler with about 5 or 6 empty beer cans with sunglasses with a beer on his chest. And I thought, he is going to freak out because he's going to wake up and he's going to be surrounded by Christians and there's someone being baptized. So it's going to really embarrass him. So I went down and talked to him and said, hey, I'd love you to stay. Please stay. But just so you don't freak out, I just want to warn you. He goes, hey, baptists are cool. So I said, great. So he's laying there. I come back up the hill, and Jeff, that was the lead guitar player I just replaced in the band. I've known him for years. Used to be the roadie for that guy. All these things, I know that guy. He looks at me, Jeff looks at me, goes, isn't this weird? I mean, I've not even talked to him. He doesn't even know I'm a Christian. My son's getting baptized. Is this not weird or what? He says, maybe you should go down and talk to him. And I looked at him and I just started laughing, and he looked at me and goes, I said, Jeff, you know what I'm going to say. He goes, okay, I'll talk to him. And so he goes down and he basically says, here's what's happened in my life, and told him the whole story, right? This was a significant moment for Fast. He'd never gone really public with his faith until that moment. He said it was so hard, but it was so me. It was so good. Now, the thing about this is being sent, you get to be yourself. In fact, we see Paul talking about it's not eloquence. It's not a place of knowing the answers and not being polished. It's not being wise. It's not being persuasive. And so if you think, I can't be those things, you're in good shape and you can even tremble and shake when you do it. It makes no difference. And I would say that it's really just being yourself and letting your light shine and be who you are. Say, this is who I am and this is who God is. And saying what you know to be true and being authentic as you pray. And God comes and reveals himself. But I'd say that, I can say all that, but what you have to understand, it is always spiritually opposed. I've been doing this for a long time. I have never not felt vulnerable when I start opening about the things about how good God is, or talking to him about who Jesus is. I've never not felt vulnerable. And in fact, I don't want to not feel vulnerable because it is a vulnerable thing. That's what love is. That's when you care enough for somebody, you let them in on something that's risky, that could be misconstrued, and they could actually say, I reject you, and it could be hurtful. But you understand that is what it is. It's a place that you get real. You tell them from your heart what's going on inside of you and who Jesus is, and something happens. You just are honest who God is. You're honest with who you are, and God backs you. And when you go there, what you'll find is you can go there easier the next time. The way you learn, I used to say, well, wait till you get your fears taken care of, and understand this is really good news and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine to think all those things. But here's how you're going to become a person who's sent. Start going where you're sent and try it. This week. Just dare to do it. And it will always feel vulnerable, but you will find out you're made for this. And you will find out that your personality is different than anybody else's personality. It's going to look a different way than me or someone else, but you will be able to do this in the way God's made you to, and it will change people's lives, and God will show up. I think about that guy who pulled into the parking lot. Okay, he's in his 70s if he's still alive, and he may be in his deathbed right now, reflecting on his life. He would have no idea that when I think about him pulling in, I can still feel it. And it wasn't because of him. It was because he just delivered the message. And the authority of who gave him the message came through. And I really appreciate him for doing that. And we can do that all the time, in small ways and big ways. We can do that all the time. The worship team can come up. I'm going to just start with our kind of an invitation here, close with that. Just ask Jesus to show what this would look like for you. You'll have all those things going through your mind. I'm not qualified. That's all normal stuff. You are qualified. It's very clear scripturally. God's going to use you. You don't have to wait till your life gets cleaned up. You can start right now. It's part of your calling. It's who you're made to be. And when you do it, it will fulfill you. But ask him to show you how this might look for you to be sent into the world and to have him reveal himself through you. And then the second thing I just would say in this is just start praying for people. And pray that you'll start seeing people the way God sees people. That's what Jesus did all the time. He's on the road. It doesn't matter if he didn't know somebody or whatever. He had no partiality between people. He knew that any person at any time God might want to say, do this and love this person, and God would come. And so just start saying, show me every person I meet and understand, God, how can I bring and reveal your love to this person? And look for those opportunities, those moments that you can say, I've been called and I'm sent and I'm going. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say what God said to me. I'm going to say that feeling I had. I'm going to tell them that I'm a Christian. I'm going to tell them I love Jesus. I'm going to help. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to come into it, identify, and get vulnerable with the pain I've had, and I join into their pain. All those things are what Jesus operated, and he's saying now you operate that way too. You're sent as well.